Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Double Take with the Safety Brothers. I'm Alex Safety, here with my brother, Johnny Boy, not Jonathan, John Safety. John, how are you doing this fine Friday morning?
We're good. We're back on the grind. Two episodes a week. We're going to be pumping these out for all of our loyal listeners and our NBA lovers and our Heat fans. And, last night, got that Heat W last night over the Rockets.
We said this was going to happen. We said once we started doing some more podcasts, there's clearly not even correlation, it's causation when we're doing our pod and the Heat are playing basketball.
So we'll say, for now, we got 4 straight wins and 2 straight episodes on the week. So let's keep these good vibes rolling. Let's get into it. What do we got for
Especially
today,
as the Heat, we have it's going to tie our franchise record for the longest road trip. We have 7 games on the road.
And those tough Western Conference teams for sure.
For this special Friday episode, what John and I are going to do is give our top 10 teams in the NBA, so little power rankings after 1/3 of the season has elapsed. Most teams have played, John, about 25 games, which is in the 72-game season. That's actually over 1/3 of the season. So we thought it'd be a good time to, of course, rank the top 10 teams. We're going to go from 1 to 10, and we're going to go every other. So I'm going to start, John.
Let's hear it. Who's number 1?
There's no surprise here. The top team in the NBA is currently the LA Lakers. No, it's not the Utah Jazz, who have the best record. But the Lakers, the Jazz have, John, what's their little streak that they're on? They've won 15
So the Jazz started off 4-4 to start the season. So being 500 their first 8 games. And they've won now 16 of their last 17 games.
Yeah.
So, including some really good teams. They just beat the Celtics the other night, too, which I thought would have been a good matchup, given what Boston could do defensively. But Jazz have been rolling through Western teams, Eastern teams. They do have a tough stretch coming up, but they are 20-5 right now.
And so you got to be pretty scorching hot to do that, John. 16 of 17, and their current record is 20-5, and the Lakers are just 1 game behind them. The Lakers are actually not even half a game. The Lakers have 20 wins and 6 losses to the Jazz's 20-5. So I'm using the Jazz as how hot they're playing as a way to that's a way to see how incredible that the Lakers have been all season long, winning just after last night. They've won, or 2 nights ago, they've won 3 straight games in overtime, which I honestly don't even know how that happened.
2 of them were to the Oklahoma City
against
Thunder.
OKC, you're right. But, when you look at it, it's because Anthony Davis he's been out for a little period of time, which is good that it's an Achilles injury, so it's good that they're taking their time on that. But the Lakers are the best team in the NBA right now. They're still my pick to win the title. After last season, we saw how great they were, and they did have a lot of changes on their bench, but I think it only made them better. Guys like Dennis Schroeder and Montrezl Harrell can carry the offensive load for long periods of time. Adding a veteran like Marc Gasol and what he's brought to the table with not only his defense, which is what he's known for, but his passing. And, of course,
he's just a high IQ player. Smart guy. Having Rondo in there like last year, now having a guy like Schroeder in there, Gasol. Just smart players all on that team.
And it goes without saying that, the number one reason for their success is LeBron James, who we say this year after year, but this year especially, now he's 4 rings, he's played more minutes than anybody in the league, and I think he's approaching like the most minutes in history, and if you include playoffs. But he's just still playing at an incredibly high level. He's averaging 25, 7 and 7, or actually, it's actually 25, 8 and 8, 7.9, 7.9. So he's still giving you the classic LeBron stat line, and he's been incredible right now. Actually, I know we talked about MVPs on Monday, but I think that right now he's right in the mix, and
just to go back
he'll
to
get a lot of votes.
The MVP tracker that we've been looking at on Basketball Reference, they got Jokic 1, Embiid 2, LeBron 3. So I'm still sticking with Embiid right now. That's who I've got. Nuggets have come back after a slow start. They're 13-11. We know they're going to continue to, build that case up. And Jokic will continue to build his MVP case as he's averaging career highs on pretty much every statistic.
Yeah.
Definitely can't disagree with you with your number 1 pick with the Lakers. I think it's interesting. We're going to start to recognize the trend we're going to see with all these top teams. And, a few years ago, we looked at teams like the Cavaliers at the top. Who was their big man? Like Kevin Love, I guess. And the Warriors never really had. Their death lineup included Draymond Green at center, right? Even the Rockets, going super small. They were one of the top teams for a while. They did have Clint Capella, but he's more just like a lob catcher, rim protector kind of guy. Now we look at these top teams, Jazz, Sixers, Nuggets, all these teams, even the Bucks, of course, with
Bucks,
big
Giannis
down
counts. Even
low.
you want to go to like the Suns. The Suns have DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah. So I think this year we're starting to see that shift back. First we went to the smaller guys with the Steph, the Dames, the Hardens, the Westbrooks. Now we're going back to bigger guys dictating who's at the top of the list. And I think if you're going to take a crack at the undisputed number one team at the Lakers, because of all the reasons you said, because of LeBron James and what he's doing without Anthony Davis at full strength, if you're going to crack at them, you need to be big down low. And that's why I have this next team at number 2 for the power rankings. And I don't see power rankings as much as, who's the hottest team right now? Because, of course, it's the Jazz right now. They've just been the hottest after, like I said, winning 16 of their last 17, going on the hot streak that they've been on. 2 for me is the Sixers. And we were thinking about Alex today, talking about Bradley Beal trades, and this was one of the trades I would have talked about, was Ben Simmons for Bradley Beal. Mm-hmm. And you think about it, because Simmons has been a disappointment this year. Me, I had him as like my favorite guy with like the really, really good MVP odds, because I just saw him like putting the shooters around him, Danny Green and Seth Curry as a ball handler and a shooter, and getting rid of Al Horford opens up the paint for him, and seeing all that. I liked him as the MVP guy of the Sixers. Instead, it's been the center, Joel Embiid now, who now I'm on that case. I'm on the Embiid wave. I'm sticking with my team to come out of the East. The reason I don't think I can do a Simmons for Beal trade, as great as a Beal is,
doing anything.
I don't think I can, because of what I just said. You have to take out the Lakers. And who's better equipped to do that than a team with a guy like Ben Simmons, who is a great defender and has the same build and size as LeBron. He can go up against LeBron. And then a guy down low in Embiid, who also is making, a case to be on an all-defensive first team this year, as well as he's building his MVP case, for him to go up against Anthony Davis down low. So for that reason, the Sixers to me are the next team I have to have up. I know a lot of people are going to say the Nets. I know Vegas has the Nets as the next highest odds after the Lakers win the title. But to me right now, that next team up is the team that I predicted before the season started. It might be for a few different reasons, but right now I like what I'm seeing out of MVP and Embiid in the Sixers.
Yeah, and so I don't have too strong of a disagreement with that. I mean, I think it's a fine pick for number 2. They are at the top of the East. You gotta give them respect for that. And as far as your Ben Simmons take, I definitely wouldn't trade Ben Simmons. I'm definitely a Ben Simmons truther. Everyone wants to hate on him. He's still giving you 14, 8, and 8, despite what everyone wants to say. And he's not. Of course, he's not a 3-point shooter. This year, he is shooting 3-pointers at a higher percentage than Jimmy Butler. But that's neither here nor there.
I mean, how many shot even?
I don't even know, actually, but we'll look at that later. But I think their success definitely comes down to Embiid's MVP play. And I do like the way they match up with the Lakers. No matter what Simmons gives you, he's going to be there on the defensive end, and he's going to be as equipped as anyone to stop LeBron, or to slow down LeBron James. Right. No one stops LeBron. But I will say that I think you're disrespecting the Jazz here, and I guess it just comes down to a difference in opinion of how power rankings work. But to me, it's not necessarily who do we think has the best shot, because at the end of the day, they'd probably be mostly similar throughout the whole season. If you look at the power rankings, I think you have to give respect to the teams that are especially hot right now, and who today are how would you rank these teams? Which is why then I guess this will be the number 3 team. I'm putting the Utah Jazz right there, because what they're doing is nothing short of incredible. And I'm someone, John, who totally underrated them, slept on them in the preseason. And I know we saw all these teams rising in the West. We saw Phoenix would be improving. We thought Nuggets would improve. We really thought Mavericks would improve, which we were both way off on that one. And which they still have time to get together. But the one team that I kind of was sleeping on all along was the Utah Jazz. I kind of was putting them in that bottom 7 or 8 seed area, and clearly that will not be the case this year. They're 20-5, best record in the league, and something that blew my mind, John. Kevin O'Connor for The Ringer has his new series, or not his new series, he's continued from the bubble with his little videos, really cool. And something that he outlined, which I didn't know, it's pretty mind blowing to me. Out of their 9 rotation guys, 2 of them don't shoot threes. It's their 2 centers, Derek Favors and their starter, Rudy Gobert, don't shoot threes. So you have 7 guys shooting threes. Only 2 of them, George Niang and Jordan Clarkson, are shooting under 40% from behind the arc.
That's ridiculous.
It's insane.
To have 5 guys shooting above 40% from 3.
You go Mike Conley, 41, Donovan Mitchell, 42, Bogdanovich, 41.5, Royce O'Neal, 45.5. And then Joe Ingles off the bench, which that's been huge for them too. Also, Jordan Clarkson, he's shooting. It's not like he's shooting too far below. He's at 38%, and he's gonna be the sixth man of the year as of now.
Right.
I think actually you ended up picking him. I think, Sean, right?
I did. That was all my picks were kind of Heat centric. I had Spo at 1. I had Hero for either sixth man or no, I'm sorry, for most improved. I had Bam for Defensive Player of the Year. Of course, we've gotten off to such a sloppy start in the first third of the season that we probably lost all those cases. The one that I was correct on was Jordan Clarkson.
I mean, this dude is he's just a bucket, and that's all you can say. And he's averaging 17 points a game. But the other thing about the Utah Jazz is obviously they're shooting incredibly well on the offensive end, but their defense and where Rudy Gobert as that defensive anchor, what he's been doing, and their lineup too it's a pretty small lineup. You have him 7 foot in the paint, and then Bogdanovich is 6'8", and then after that you have your 3 other guards or wings or whatever you want to call them are 6 foot, 6'2", and then
Ingles might be about.
Well, Ingles is off the bench though, but
right.
And I think he's probably 6'6", but Royce O'Neal is 6'4". So you got 3 guys in your lineup,
Ingles,
6'4",
6'8", Bogdanovich 6'8".
Yeah, but I have to give them a lot of credit, and I think also one other reason that I slept on them is because I wasn't factoring in the coach factor, and Quinn Snyder is right now he's on pace to be coach of the year in my opinion. So gotta give him a ton of credit as well.
No doubt, right now Quinn Snyder is coach of the year. They're the only team right now with a top 4 defensive and offensive rating. So they're up there. If you want to be good on both ends, that's what I'm talking about. These teams up here, Sixers, Lakers. That's why we're gonna see the Bucks and the Nets at lower parts of the list because they haven't been as good defensively. One thing I'll say to respond to you, Alex, is with power rankings, okay, you want to give the team with the hot hand their dues. I'm fine with having them up there at 3. But my question is, do you really think they could beat, like right now, if a 7-game series started, a series against the Sixers or my next team, the Clippers, who I'll talk about in a sec. But first, just what do you think about that? Them versus the Clippers. I mean, they've been great, but I don't know if they're going to take out Kawhi and Paul George.
Like I said, I'm not totally factoring it as far as like a 7-game series, but do I think? Yeah, I think they're pretty evenly matched with the Sixers. I mean, the Sixers just blew a game last night to Portland, and I understand they're on a Western Conference road trip, but CJ McCollum's out of the lineup, so like I don't know. I think those are games that like the Jazz clearly haven't been dropping those type of games, which is why I'm just gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. And the Clippers, I know you have to even though after last year they're disappointing what happened in the playoffs, you still have to bet on Kawhi and Paul George, but I think the Jazz are evenly matched with them as well, and I wouldn't be shocked. That could go 7, and I'm sure a lot of people on paper, it's like the Clippers, you'd say, yeah, the Clippers are way better. Right. But no, I think the Jazz would definitely have a shot in that series.
All right, so yeah, just to now to build on the argument for the number 4 team we got here, I think it's interesting Jazz and Clippers back to back because to me, you see the difference maker that just a painful loss in the playoffs the year before can give you. Both of these teams dropped 3-1 leads to the Nuggets, and they went home from Orlando, from the bubble, being as hungry as ever in their careers. Like, that's something CJ McCollum actually said. He was on the Bill Simmons podcast. He's like, yeah, I think it might have been, one of the best things that to happen to Paul George was to hit the side of the backboard on that shot. And that's like the defining moment, I think.
That was like absolute rock bottom.
That's the defining moment of like that just series, and that collapse was like how bad they were. They're down. It's like, all right, what are you going to do? Are you going to make a comeback in this game 7 and like come back and win it after the Nuggets had made a 3-1 comeback? And what does he do? He hits the side of the backboard, and it just was a horrible way to end the season. Both these teams end up blowing 3-1 leads. The Jazz with losing off of Mike Conley, missing that 3 that's like kind of in and out that would have gotten them to the next round, and they have that to go home and think about. The Nuggets, on the other hand, they did as well as they could have. They maximized. I'm talking about the Nuggets.
Oh.
The Nuggets maximized their potential. They got all the way to Western Conference Finals. And look, slow start. Same thing with the Miami Heat. And I'm not going to say that the Heat aren't as hungry. Yeah, I will say we aren't as hungry because, for one, of course, the COVID, that's not about hunger. COVID, is a reason that they've started off slow. But the Heat also, we maximize our potential, and you're just not as hungry going in. We dropped the game to the Wizards without Russell Westbrook. Like, there's part of you that if you're just hungry the way the Jazz and the Clippers are coming out now after their disgusting losses last year, they're going to win those games. And that's why I think teams like the Nuggets and the Heat have started off a little slow.
Yeah, and then, I mean, just to go back to Paul George, he's right now, John, he's shooting 50, 47, 90.
Yeah.
He's shooting almost 50% from behind the arc, which is, as you mentioned, after that shot hitting the side of the backboard, clearly he's playing with just another level of focus and excellence. I mean,
it was a short offseason too, but it was a short offseason of just a lot of roasting him on Twitter and social media and the media writing, bad articles about him. So you'd expect a guy to come out like that. So Alex, who's next? Who you got?
So right now we got Lakers, Sixers, Jazz, Clippers, and I with the number 5th spot. I'm gonna say that is the Milwaukee Bucks, and I think the main thing with them all season long has just been, the last 2 seasons we've seen them absolutely dominate in the regular season. We've seen them blow the doors off of teams in the regular season from start to finish, and have top 10 all time point differentials. But in the end, what did it really matter? It didn't matter at the end of the day. So I think with them, if we're looking big picture, do I still believe in them? I do still believe in them. Some people would probably say that it's stupid to still believe in them after everything. But the 2 main things that the points why I still think they have a shot, why I think they're the 5th best team in the NBA, is I still do believe in Chris Middleton. He's incredibly underrated. He has been playing very well. He's their closer. He's the guy who's going to close out games. And 2 nights ago, they played the Phoenix Suns. They went down to the end of the game, and Giannis, their last play, they were down 1 point. Their last play of the game is Giannis shooting a mid-range jumper. That should not be the play. Either lob it to Giannis, get Giannis to the basket, or give the ball to Chris Middleton.
But isn't this the point though with this team? I mean, everyone, all the sports media, all the talking heads, everyone made this point time and time again. After they lost in the playoffs 2 years in a row to the 2 Eastern Conference champions, the Raptors with Kawhi and then the Heat, of course, last year. Isn't this the point with this team that when they need a game, when a game's on the line, they need a bucket the most, having a guy like Giannis, having a guy like Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal, similar. Shaq needed his Kobe. He needed his Dwayne Wade, right? And now we're looking at this team, Giannis down low. A team could just send 3 defenders at him, and he dishes it out. This is my point. He dishes it out to Eric Bledsoe, and what happens? Hits the rim and misses, and the game's over. Giannis gets down, and he didn't go down into the paint because they walled up, and he shoots a mid-range shot.
No,
he can't shoot.
Well, I think to me that comes down to coaching. I mean, it's similar. It honestly reminds me a little bit of Durant and Westbrook, and it'd be like end of the game, and Westbrook would be shooting, ill-advised shots. It was like, why do you have Westbrook shooting when you have a guy in Kevin Durant that's so incredible? And so obviously, I'm not saying Middleton is better than Giannis, but Middleton is way more equipped in the end of the game situations to win games for you. We talked about Paul George, who's 50, 40, 90, or 50, 47, 90. Chris Middleton is not far behind. He's 51, 45, 91.
Yeah.
I mean, and once again, in the regular season, we've seen them do this before, and Chris Middleton is a guy who, if you look at the past 2 years, he does shrink in the playoffs. If you just compare his regular season stats to his playoff stats, but I really do believe in him, and I think he will be the X factor. Like last year, I think Giannis has a level to move up in the playoffs. He can play better than he has in the playoffs, but I also think that Middleton is even more of an X factor. And this is not even to mention Jrue Holiday, and I think the team right now that's clearly we've left out in the top 5 are the Brooklyn Nets, and their biggest issue is their defense. That's not an issue for the Milwaukee Bucks. While the Milwaukee Bucks have been better on the defensive end of the floor in the past few years, their lineup of, when you can have a guy in the playoffs, you can put up a lineup of Jrue Holiday, Chris Middleton, Giannis, and Brook Lopez in the paint, and with whoever that 5th guy ends up being in that lineup. That's a very, very good defensive lineup in the playoffs, which is why I think they're better than the Nets, and why today, and hopefully, I still think, if I had to put money, I would pick them over the Nets in the 7-game series, which might be crazy.
No, that's not, and that is the team I have next, the Nets, and putting them at number 6 on our list here, some people might be surprised by that, but at the end of the day, they haven't, as much as the star power on paper looks great, they have not been that team on a nightly basis. And Kyrie even was the one who was, complaining about it and saying, yeah, we haven't been good, we need to be better. We don't seem like a team that's going to, win a title right now because of we dropped games on regular nights.
They lost to Detroit the other
day. To not good teams. So these are the things we talked about. And Alex, I was more on the, all right, listen, they got 3 dudes, here they are, and you were like, no, bro, they're not gonna be good. The locker room situations or whatever. To me, it's not about that. It's really just about defense, and they don't have bigs right now. You know, you swap the positions around, and you could honestly swap Harden for a guy that's probably less talented, but is a better position, and it might be a better fit. And
I would say Irving. I would say swap Irving. Swap Kyrie.
Harden or Irving.
Harden's better.
One of those guards. To me, having
Harden and KD, like, that's as good as any tandem in the NBA.
You're right. So,
I mean, that was my thing. This was going to be the Kyrie.
Would you rather have given up Kyrie but kept, you know, LeVert and Jarrett Allen?
No, because I still think that team, like, just having.
I'm honestly looking at it like.
I wouldn't. Here's why, John. Because just having Jarrett Allen isn't going to be a huge difference.
Oh, and LeVert off the bench. I'm just saying.
I think they still need a little more wing defense as well, or even guard defense.
But you can't have any wing defenders because you know who's playing all the wing spots? Harden, KD.
No, Joe Harris. Joe Harris. Like,
and Joe Harris.
You can have a guy instead of Joe Harris. You can put out maybe a guy like a PJ Tucker. We don't know if he's gonna get bought out. We don't know if he's gonna be traded. Things like that. But if you had a guy like that who, like, he's not gonna hurt you on the offensive end. He'll hit open shots here and there. But defensively, like, he's very respectful.
But again, Alex, the trend we've had, I also like the Celtics this season, but they're going to be lower on this list the same way the Nets are, because to me, they don't have that big down low. I mean, Tristan Thompson is a better big down low than what the Nets got with KD at their 5. KD's going to have to go through Giannis and Brook Lopez down low, Embiid and Simmons down low, LeBron and Anthony Davis down low. Like, Kevin Durant, is
Bam.
Bam and Jimmy Butler, right? If the Heat can get it together, is KD at the 5? Is that going to happen? Because I know that's not what he signed up for when he went here and when he signed off on the Harden trade. So DeAndre Jordan, you know, he's not the Lob City almost defensive player of the year, almost all-star type of guy that he once was. So what are we expecting? What are we going to see from this team? It's not coming from Noah Vonleh. What is it?
Noah Vonleh. Well, it's so interesting, John, because I think Josh Eberle tweeted this, he has a podcast, but he's a guy on Twitter, like, I follow, big NBA guy. And he was saying, he's like, the situation is so, like, interesting and, like, almost, like, I think he said, I don't know what word he used, but he's basically saying it's so warped. Like, you have the best scorer in the league and arguably one of the best scorers of all time, but you need him to be, like, your best defensive player if you're going to be successful. And it's just crazy when you have, and that's why, I mean, I said it, I'm patting myself on the back. When that trade happened, I was like, all this Harden trade does to me is, like, make them even better on offense, but the offense wasn't a weak point of that team. That team was already scoring a ton of points, and Karis LeVert off the bench was a guy that was helping them. Trading him for Harden is ultimately what the trade was. Trading him for Harden wasn't going to do anything. You're already, you know, a 9.5 out of 10 on offense, but now you're a 9.6, 9.7, and all I thought it was doing was creating more potential for chemistry issues, which actually there haven't been that. However,
that's what I was right about.
Yeah, the other big thing was defense, and their defense right now, they're like the bottom 5 in the league.
Yeah, so I mean, to put this team at 6 here. It's just you know, giving the respect to the All-Stars, how good those 3 guys are, saying I think they'll figure it out. But also, I'm looking down the East. The only team I'm worried about, which is the same thing I think I said at the beginning of this, I still like the Sixers. You know, the Nets could be up there with them if they figure it out and how they can be more consistent on a nightly basis. But to me, I still if they're in that tier with the Bucks and the Celtics, I think I give them the edge just purely on having Kevin Durant, Harden, and Kyrie, just those 3 guys. And yeah, they figure it out on the defensive end enough in the playoffs. And that's why I think, you know, if it's the bubble Heat, I like the bubble Heat, but we don't have Jay Crowder anymore, so that's
we're gonna get together. We'll talk about it.
And the Sixers, I like right now. So Bucks and Celtics, I'll take the Nets right now, but still, I guess maybe I'm a little bit. They're still underperforming, you know, from what I first thought they could have been. So, Alex, number 7, who you got? Who's next?
So, one team that I think I expected them to be a little better than they currently are as far as just their record has been the Denver Nuggets. But I still think, I mean, if we're doing power rankings, I know we have different definitions. I might even put them over the Nets just because their record is pretty similar. And
I mean, I'm actually okay with that because you would look at their record, they're 13-11, and say, oh, the Nuggets can't be that high because they're lower in the Western Conference. But I'm okay with that because to me, it's about who right now would you not want to see in the playoffs? Who has the best shot of winning the title?
And so the Nuggets, John, I think the main reason for how great they've been, the reason I really like them as a team right now, is Nikola Jokic. And he's averaging 27 points, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists on 56, 40, 85 shooting splits. And those are basically career highs in every single stat. I think the only one is like right now he's 56% from the field. Like when he was younger, he had like a year where he was like 57. But that's not a big difference. And every night he's going out and putting up these insane stat lines. And he, John, I know we've been saying this about Luka. He's a guy who, and it reminds me of that like Kobe quote. He's like, I was watching Larry Bird film because I couldn't figure out how he was doing what he was doing because he looked slow as hell to me.
Right.
He looked slow as shit. And that's what Jokic is. Jokic, obviously not a great athlete. There's all those funny photos of him when he was younger, when he was all fat and chubby and whatever. Yeah. And like this guy, like going to be the league MVP right now.
Right.
So I think everything for that team surrounds Jokic. What I will say, talking about the other half of their superstar equation or star equation, whatever you want to call it, is Jamal Murray, who this year you coming into the season, you looked at guys, all right, who could make like a next step up into like top 20 player range or top 15 player range. And Jamal Murray, after in the playoffs last year, averaging 26 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, which is like that's like over any stretch of his career, incredible, and shooting over 50% from the field and 45 from behind the arc. I thought Jamal Murray was going to come out and have an incredible season. He hasn't, been that good, and we can talk about whatever reasons we think it is. But at the end of the day, I do expect that. I know that Murray has one level that he can still jump and go up from where he is right now, which is why I still think that the Nuggets, despite their record, which is like pretty, average, I'd say, it's not incredible, it's nothing crazy. I still think that they're going to be certainly in the mix, and I think they're probably like a top 3 team in the West.
No, I can't disagree with that. I do love Jokic. I mean, he's a very likable player, and I think a lot of fans, are on that wave. And I would like to see either him or Embiid win the MVP, whatever. If it's not LeBron, and we're not giving LeBron the lifetime achievement MVP, whatever. So I'm all with you on the Nuggets. What I will say about Jamal Murray and him not taking that leap yet is, first, we know he's capable of it because what he looked like, in the bubble. But the other thing to keep in mind, he's 23 years old. We just turned 21, Alex. He's only 2 years older than us. He's so young and still has 4 or 5 seasons until he's really supposed to hit his peak. So I'm okay right now if he's not the best right now. What I'm saying for this team, regardless of whether they have the title window for open right now and they're going to blow it because he's not maximizing his potential. If they can keep those two guys together with the emergence of now, I guess, Michael Porter Jr., who's also about 21, 22.
Yeah, well,
if you can get him, that third piece, that trio is a tough trio to compete with
John,
for the next 5, 6, 7 seasons.
I'm glad that you mentioned Michael Porter Jr., who he has had some struggles this year, and it's a lot of it's on the defensive end, but he's still a guy who's very young, has a lot of upside, and we've seen him, have incredible plays and flashes of what he could be. But I think that one of my favorite fake Bradley Beal trade teams is the Denver Nuggets. You could get a little, Michael Porter Jr., a few first round picks, and whatever contracts you need to send also to make it work. Maybe it's Will Barton, I don't know. Now that's a very, very legit team, and that's why they're one of my favorite fake Bradley Beal trade.
One
teams.
more fun thing to talk about with this team is just how talented they've been from a draft perspective. Off the bench, and I was watching the other night, and there were dudes in the court. I was like, I forget, who is this guy right now? And they're all, just zinging the passes around, good offense. It was Murray and Jokic were off the floor, and I was just impressed with how their bench is. They got Will Barton there, and thinking about a guy like Jeremy Grant that would have been on this team still, and, of course he wouldn't be, the 25-point scorer that he is now with the Pistons, and he just bet on himself, to get that big contract and to be the number 1 guy on that Pistons team. But imagine right now, he'd be tied for, I guess he'd be the number 3 guy, or tied, you could say, after Murray, Jokic, and then he's in there with Porter Jr. Yeah. And then also on a defensive end, he's helping that team out, which definitely has some defensive holes. I think that would have been cool to see him if he would have stayed. They still got Paul Millsap, of course, on his veteran contract as he's getting older. But Nuggets are a fun team, and they're a team that I look at and I'm like, wow, there's 7 on this list, and it just makes me excited thinking about the league right now and how many just fun teams there are. It's forgetting how good they are. A team like the Charlotte Hornets won't crack this list, but they are fun on a nightly basis. And that's for a future episode we can do our league pass teams, which of course the Hornets are up there, the Warriors and Steph Curry are up there, but the league's as fun as ever in my opinion.
Okay, John, those are 7 teams. Who is the 8th team on our power rankings?
So 8th, it should be the Heat right now, but I have to give this team the nod over the Heat right now just because of our slow start, and that's the Celtics. I love how good having the duo of Brown and Tatum is right now, and looking at those two guys, back to back, number 3 picks in the draft. Just two wing guys that had a good head on their shoulders, had a lot of potential as 18, 19-year-old guys coming into this league, and you see them maximizing that. Like, they're getting the most out of it. From what Jaylen Brown looked like, he was coming into the league very unpolished, raw, just potential there, and now we're seeing him get there as a 26 points per game scorer in the league. Tatum, of course, is who he is. Ever since his coming out party in that series against the Cavaliers in 2018 and the Eastern Conference Finals against LeBron, having those two guys, and people talked about should they trade one of, like, a few years ago, it was like trade one of them for, like, Porzingis was in there, and
or like Kawhi Leonard,
Jimmy Butler,
or even
Kawhi Leonard,
if they were to get Harden,
Anthony Davis, Harden, any of those guys. And I think you have to look back on it, and like I know we've heard, Nick Wright is someone of Fox Sports 1. He's someone who's been very critical of them not all the assets they had after that Brooklyn trade for KG and Pierce,
really
not using any of that. But they have to look back and at least be pretty happy with what they've done with those two guys. And those two guys and alone are the reason that I have this team where I have them. I think there are a dark horse team to get out of the East the same way the Heat were last year. And for those reasons, I'm picking a Boston team.
Certainly, and I think with them, it's very clear that they have one of the best young duos in the league. And the thing that I love about them is that they play both ends of the floor, which if you have two guys who are going to be able to score and defend on both ends, and they're both, I don't even know, are they both still under 25? I mean, they're incredibly young.
Tatum's 22 and Brown's like 23.
And in the NBA, I know we like to give our Celtics fan friends a lot of crap for us beating them in the playoffs and everyone hyping up Tatum and all these things. At the end of the day, you look at that team and you don't want to get complacent and say, well, they're so young, we have this window. But those guys are so young, they have a lot of time to develop. Yeah. And we're so, I think, especially in the NBA, we're so, and we're just so quick to judge and to hop on these guys and be like, they're not good enough, they'll never get it done. Yeah. When in reality, those guys, they're going to make it happen at some point.
And for any 2K players, they are one of the most fun teams to use, but just because of those two guys, you can just score pretty much on anyone and also play pretty good perimeter defense. So, fun 2K21 team. All right, number 9, Alex. Get to the end of the list. Who do you got?
I have the Phoenix Suns, who I probably would actually put over Boston, John, but I have the Phoenix Suns. Monty Williams been a great coach.
Another young star, Devin Booker.
Yeah, young star. Of course, the big story was, Chris Paul coming in. But I think what we've seen from them, it's kind of been, I guess, for me, the difference in the what I wasn't expecting for them to come in and do was Bridges. You have Mikal Bridges as well as Cameron Johnson, your two wing guys who are really, I mean,
high draft.
You want to call them baby versions of Tatum and Brown. They don't have the upside. The only reason I'm saying that is they're two young wings who do it on both ends.
And they win the lottery too. So you see some of these teams. I think we've seen this kind of with the Cavs too. It's like they're in that lottery every year. Now we're seeing like all these young, like Colin Sexton. Like they drafted him a few years and now we're like, oh, he's actually pretty good. He's good. Same thing with these teams. Like, oh, they drafted those guys pretty early. Like here they are.
Well,
like,
Cameron Johnson. I remember that pick at the time. I was kind of shocked, but I was like, well, why did they pick him? It was a little early. I think they traded for him or something, or they traded down to get Cam Johnson. But they've been very impressive this year, and I'm glad that they're one of the teams that I anticipated being good this year, and they are good. Because I love Devin Booker. I love Chris Paul. And I think Monty Williams, he's an underrated coach in the NBA too. So they've been great, and they just beat the other night. They beat Giannis, and Giannis dropped 47 on them, but wasn't enough. So I'm going to have them at the 9 spot in our power rankings, John. Number 10, the last spot. I think there's a lot of different ways you could go. I'm just looking at the standings here. I mean, in the West, we didn't say the Blazers, we didn't say the Spurs, we got the Golden State Warriors. In the East, Pacers. I mean, I wouldn't say the Raptors, but
no, not today, Eli. All right, so come on, this is a Miami Heat podcast. I couldn't not put the Heat in our top 10. Yes, their record shows that they should probably be like 20th on our power rankings or whatever. But
maybe 15.
Here's the argument. Yes, they went to the bubble. They went into the bubble last year. They surprised everyone. They got to the NBA Finals. They would have won the NBA Finals if Bam and Goran Dragic didn't get hurt. But that's for another episode.
I concur.
And right now, yes, our record is not good. We are 11-14, but we've won 4 straight games. And Jimmy Butler and Hero and Dragic and Bam and like pretty much every guy on our team has missed time. Okay, without Butler, we are 2-9. Here, how about this for an MVP case? And of course, the Heat's record isn't good enough, and Butler's stats aren't as impressive.
I mean, 27-7 is pretty impressive.
Right.
20.7 rebounds, 7 assists.
But 2-9 without Butler. With Butler, we're 9-5, which is kind of like how some of these Eastern teams started off. You know, the Bucks and the Nets and what's the third team? The Celtics. Those teams at that point, 13 games, 14 games, whatever, they were about 9-5. So I'm saying, look at where we were when Butler was there. I'm not even saying when Dragic wasn't there because we've missed him. We've missed Hero. We didn't have Dragic or Hero last night. We've missed Bams for time. I'm just saying, look at what we've been with our best player there. We're 9-5. We're going to get back on the right track, and going forward, I think we get into the playoffs, and hopefully we can secure a top 4 seed and have some home court advantage. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, John, I don't know if I would have put them here at 10, but now that you're doing it, you're talking me into it, I think the best argument is that Butler has been out of the lineup. We're 2-9 without Butler, and that's a ton of most of our losses. And John,
get into a 7-game series, and they're up there with teams you don't want to see if they're at full strength and healthy. Don't look at their record and when they weren't when we were playing with G League guys on the team.
And watching us last night, John, it gave me a little glimpse, a little window of how we were in the bubble, and which is. It was so shocking to see this team at the beginning of the season, even when we did have our guys in the lineup, and just the energy wasn't there, the defense wasn't there. We looked like a completely different team from the team that we just watched go to the NBA Finals in October. But last night, like I said, gave me a glimpse of that. We were down 10 points after the first quarter. We bring it in down within early. 6 at halftime. In the third quarter, we go on a huge run, hold. It was not a third quarter. It was just a great third quarter. We hold the Rockets to only 10 points in the third quarter. We come back, and it was a great. Jimmy Butler was leading the way with 27 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. Bam! And then I think the other thing is Bam struggled all night offensively. He ended up with a near triple-double, which is why
struggled and still almost had a triple-double.
When you have Jimmy and Bam, they're two guys who, even when they're not scoring the basketball, they will still be able to impact the game and help you get wins. Even like I said, even when the shots aren't falling. So I think that's always going to be one of the strengths of the Miami Heat. And you know what? We're turning it around, and we're going to get on this little win streak going on our Western Conference.
Spo's going to figure out the rotation, and I like that Nunn has been better than he has been, since last season. He's been good so far this season.
Yeah.
Got a starting job so far. Maybe
he's been trading places with Tyler Hero.
Yeah,
again.
and I would rather see Hero in that 6-man role until he becomes like that guy. It's his second season in the league. He's 21 years old. Let's give him his time before he becomes the guy. Hand him over the keys. I think it was a little bit early still having a guy like Dragic. I think Dragic should be the starter, or Nunn if we like Nunn in there. And Hero is that guy off the bench. He's in the clutch time lineup. But for right now, I want Spo to figure that lineup out, having Hero off the bench.
Well, I think with that, putting Hero in the starting lineup is we kind of forgot after the bubble and the bubble run, we forgot that he's still 20 years old. He just turned 21. And at the end of the day, Kendrick Nunn, while I would say he's not as talented as Hero, he is older. And at some point, there's a level of you're still young, you still got to figure things out. And he had that stretch in the bubble, which is incredible. Now we know what his peak can be. But I do like him still off the bench, giving him time to let the game come to him, essentially.
For sure.
So that is our top. Those are our top 10 teams. We got the Lakers at 1, Sixers, Jazz, Clippers, Bucks, Nets, Nuggets, Celtics, Suns, and the Miami Heat at number 10, rounding out our list. This has been a very fun episode, John. We're gonna be back on Monday. Lots more to talk about. We're gonna get into depth about some other topics. We're going to talk more about all these great teams.
And the All-Star returns, of course, which have been coming back.
We are going to do, at some point, our own All-Star rosters and whether or not we think it should happen, which I think it's still pretty clear. Right. I don't know why they should even
I don't know if you saw this, but they're trying to do a dunk contest at halftime of the game. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so they're trying to kind of pack it as much as they can.
A dunk contest could be relatively safe.
Yeah,
when you have all the players, you're shipping them to all the same place. I think that's a little dangerous. It's like, imagine the league, all their best players, that's like essentially all the money on the court, and then you don't
want anyone.
What happens if someone has COVID? It's just it's disaster. So anyway, it's been a good one. Thank you for listening. Peace out.
Go Heat.